Hey everyone, welcome to Mind Over Matter, the podcast where we dive deep into the intricacies of human mind, unpack life's challenges, and explore the resilience of human spirit. I'm your host Avik, and today's episode promises to be a transformative journey. So, today we are delving into the profound and deeply personal world of the trauma recovery, a topic that touches so many lives but yet remains shrouded in misunderstanding and the stigma. So, to guide us on this enlightening path, we have a guest whose work has literally redefined what's possible in healing. So, joining us is Michael Evan Blair. So, welcome to the show, Michael.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Lovely, lovely. So, Michael, like before we start our conversation, I'd quickly love to introduce you to all of our listeners. Um, Dear listeners, Michael is a mental health educator and a trauma recovery specialist with over 3 decades of experience. So, he has spent 32 years refining cutting edge therapeutic tools that have helped countless individuals release their deepest pains, reprogram their minds, and reclaim their identities. So, Michael, it's an absolute honor to have you here today, and your passion for helping others and your, innovative approach to the trauma recovery are really, really inspiring. So, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Lovely, lovely. So, Michael, trauma can be such an overwhelming and isolating experience, I believe. So, from your perspective, why do you think that it's so difficult for people to even recognize their trauma, um, let alone begin the recovery process?
Well, thank you for asking. It's really interesting to note that, of
Huh?
course, trauma experiences that people have, such as abuse of one kind or another, or car accidents, or whatever it is, could be the war, PTSD, etc., that they experience a deep pain,
Mm,
and that pain is stored inside the memory. And the memory is oftentimes repressed or pushed away, at least until it's triggered up. And so it's just a great the human psyche has the capacity to be able to take overwhelming circumstances and then to through a very simple system of pain relief allow for that pain to be stored. We call it dissociation in the field. Just
mm,
means parts of us become um, storage places for the trauma feeling responses. Those are locked up inside, usually deep within inside. Sometimes they come to the surface and they are, unbeknownst to us, the cause of the reactions that we have to various circumstances that present in our day-to-day lives. And it's sometimes it's very out of control. It creates explosions, it creates interruptions in our lives, in our relationships, in our just our happiness, because it
mm,
just popped out of nowhere. So it's really important to note that the human mind has a capacity to at least to store it someplace so that we don't go crazy or kill ourselves. And so that storage capacity is important. At the same time, if we don't find a way to release and replace and reprogram those stored pains in the memories, then we collect them and continue to build on those over a lifetime, and that creates a lot of confusion in all the symptoms that you can imagine.
mm. Perfect. That's really lovely. Yeah. And that's really fascinating, I have to say. If trauma often hides in plain sight, so what do you see? Well, how can someone begin to identify the underlying cause of their struggles? What do you say?
Well, what's really interesting is that we've discovered in the past, maybe 8 years, that
Uh-huh.
that a talk therapy discovery processing is only sometimes necessary, but often we find that just evaluating the symptomology, the depression, the anxiety, the various symptoms. I've got a list of about 20 of them that we review with people and evaluate them subjectively. 0 to 10, 10 is awful. And as people identify those specific symptoms, we can then tell whether or not they have what we call stored repressed memory, and that needs to come out. And so it's in the symptom evaluation that we discover what is stored inside. We don't always know what the story is behind that inside. We can't always find it. And talk therapy often creates a lot of pain, but doesn't necessarily guarantee release. And I'm not saying talk therapy is not good, because we do plenty of that, but also, how would you like to be able to release the pain and then talk about your history instead of having to plow through the pain and hope that you can get to some relief on the other side, which isn't necessarily a method that works very well in terms of releasing old pain that's stored inside.
Mm. Exactly. I mean, it's really incredible, like how much of our pain can stem from the things that we may not even remember clearly. So, I mean, it's almost like the mind creates its own protective shield, and um, I mean, yeah, I mean, I have to say this, yeah. So, one thing like I found intriguing about your approach is um, your focus on reprogramming the mind. So, if you could walk us through what uh, that actually looks like in practice.
Well, it's really interesting. Once we identify that there is an issue there,
Mm,
then we have a recipe, a couple of different recipes actually that we employ, and I'll share some content of one and more content of another. The first one is called trauma conversion treatment or therapy, and that it means that that process includes a deep dive into a relaxed state of mind to be able to access the inner mind, and then run the inner mind through a specific languaged recipe we've utilized for about 30 years and have built upon, and it seems to really give some great results. And what happens is the relaxation facilitates the
mm,
access of the inner mind, and the inner mind then will cooperate and work through the recipe to basically vacuum up and out the pain and to share the stories and with feeling. And in the process of doing that, at the inner mind level, the parts themselves that have been wounded and hurt tend to show up and actually release
mm,
those. And when those are released, then there's an opportunity to replace. It's kind of like a weed. You take the weed out, then you put the good plant in. If you don't take the weed out, you can't really plant
mm,
and expect success in gardening. And it's the same thing here. Or you could say, if you've got a thorn in your hand and you just talk about it, that doesn't get the thorn out. But if you are able to successfully remove the thorn, then all the healing salves and all the healing can happen and the pain goes away and maybe permanently.
mm,
And so um, that's the kind of work we're doing with the TCT, and usually begins with a 1 hour process that takes about 40 to 50% of the pain away in just that
okay.
1 hour. And then we repeat versions of that, brief treatment of that kind, for a few sessions, long enough to get as much of the old pains out of the system, so that and then be facilitated in rediscovering their identity. And
Mhm,
like the keys that go back into a broken piano after it's repaired, the keys go back in and people find their identity and are really able to take off into their lives because the pain's gone and their identity's organized and they know where to
mm.
go from there. That's kind of that part of the story.
Exactly. Understood. So, I mean, um, you have mentioned that healing isn't just about reducing the pain, but it's also about reconnecting with oneself and with the others. So, Any story or example of someone who rediscovered their identity through this work, if you can share?
Sure, I've got a thousand stories. I'll just pick one out real quick.
Uh-huh.
Um, in a marriage relationship, the husband had an issue, and the wife felt betrayed. She went through a couple of preparatory processes and then came in for that 1 hour of trauma conversion therapy, TCT. And in the process, entering into that hour, she was able to move all the way from I hate my husband,
Mm,
while at the same time I love him, but I hate him so much that that interferes with me. She moved all the way through in 1 hour to a
mm,
place of I only love him, and that shift to love uh, set up a transition for her to completely change her identity from the hateful spouse to the loving spouse. And so for a few meetings, she just perfected her transition and became very, very loving in the relationship and supportive, and moved he moved back to the bedroom again, and they worked together cooperatively in ways they hadn't done for many, many years
mm,
since that betrayal pattern had been installed. So this is a really great story of her feeling better, her re-identifying herself as a loving partner, and him experiencing, of course, the reconnection with her. He had
mm.
been deathly afraid that she would divorce him, and had taken some great steps himself to
Yeah.
learn how to be a supportive spouse, and then she was able to make that transition.
Mm. Okay, understood. Uh, Also, um, uh, like it really brings to life like how um, trauma recovery isn't just about surviving, but it's about thriving and finding the joy again. So, what do you say? Like, how does someone go from simply functioning to truly flourishing? So, what do you say?
Well, let me give you another tool in that explanation. We have something we
Okay.
call spin, and
Hmm.
I have written a book called When in Doubt, Spin It Out. This
Oh.
particular process is really interesting. Um, the spin it out method turns emotional triggers into opportunities for growth by replacing instant reactions with clarity, confidence, and positivity in just minutes. That's a very powerful piece. And so when you learn that you can take charge of your feeling states, your thoughts, and therefore your behaviors, that's one of the most exciting times of people's lives, is just to wake up and realize that. And have the tools in hand with a through a book called When in Doubt, Spin It Out, like it's available on Amazon if they want it.
Mm,
Um, they have that capacity with practice, sometimes with coaching to begin with, but with practice, there's a built-in online training program in the book available where people can get all the training they need to do some basics for themselves or for their children if they'd like. And
mhm,
that can become habituated so that when stuff comes up, they know right where they feel the feeling, they know where to feel it, they feel it in their body, they know how to pull it out of themselves, they know how to put it into a shape and a color, they know how to spin it out, um, in a very dramatic way, and then to once that's out, replace that with their self-chosen feeling states they want to have, maybe faith, hope, charity, love, whatever it is. Then breathe that in. Um, they weave it into their personalities, and then they drop down their timeline from the current body age, all the way down to wherever it they this takes them. And they often go down to age 8 or 7 or some younger, sometimes as far back as the womb. And then they install those same feelings into that part of them, and then they take them by the hand and walk them up into the future where they grow up through and with those installed feeling states, the good ones, and then they integrate with their original self and walk into the future. And just it's amazing how restorative that process really is. To really understand it, you pretty much have to go through one or two yourself. It's like you really can't taste, you don't know what salt tastes like until you actually taste it. That's going to be true here too. You have to actually experience it. inside of the online landing pages through a QR code in the book, people can
Mhm.
watch 9 different examples, live sessions of people who succeed with this. And then
Mhm.
they have the actual script of this and a walkthrough that they can go through and actually practice it and learn how to do it themselves. So it's probably a $300 training built into this online QR code in the book.
Oh, wow. So your method seems like almost revolutionary, and especially with the promise of lasting results. So, but I have to ask, like, what do you say to the skeptics?
Well, the fundamental statement to the skeptics is
Mhm.
listen to those who've been through it. Listen to their testimonials. I know everybody's got a testimonial. Watch, in this case, one of the best ways to become a convert to the process and try it out is because of the book, you get a chance to really see live sessions. These are
Mm.
commissioned live sessions where people go from sad to glad or go
Yeah,
from betrayal to love. And they do it in about 10 minutes. And you can watch that. And by seeing that repetitively over 9 different situations, that helps to awaken your convincer and your skeptic to at least sample the process and throw one in and do it and find out what happens to you. I've been doing this for a long time and it finally decided I had to get it out to the world. And since it wasn't tied down into a therapy model or I was able to secure the privilege and the right to utilize this and share it with the world and get it out there to the homes, the families, the businesses that would best benefit from having this available, uh, every day if they need to. Usually going through the process, either through the spin and or through the TCT I mentioned earlier, people are able to completely change their position as often they feel like victims. They
mhm,
often victors. They often convert from the old, worried about life position into an expectation of miracles every day. And finding those then opens up to them and they find a very enthusiastic, exciting life ahead. So it's worth testing it out, tasting it, so that you know what it will do. That's how we get past the skeptics.
wow, lovely. And okay, and like, if you could leave our listeners with one guiding principle or maybe the actionable insights to start their own journey towards healing, then what would it be?
I would say find somebody or take the time if you can, if you're intuitive yourself, or find
Mhm.
somebody who can help you to identify the symptoms that you have that are bothering you, that are coming up, bubbling up, and interrupting your life. Then find someone and or a tool like the spin, which is very unique. This is a very unique process. This is not your everyday coping skill of listening to music and mindfulness, which is all good. It's really, really important too. But the trick is to be able to pull that thorn out of you, not work around it forever and try to soothe it and talk about it.
Mm.
Let's get the thorns out. So my suggestion is, you know, get a symptom review, find out, and then have somebody coach you or go to a tool like this and when in doubt, spin it out. And and discover for yourself that you can actually take charge of your life
Mm.
and one step at a time, take charge of one emotional piece of yours and or help your child to do that. There's nothing more powerful than a parent who is really happy themselves. That happiness has been researched to be what the child responds to or unhappiness. So the happy state of mind of the parent is going to more than likely influence the happy state of mind of the child more than any talk and more than any we'll call it parenting book.
Mhm.
It's state of mind of the parent that makes the difference.
Wow. That's great, lovely. Great. So, Michael, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your experience, and your heart with us today. I mean, your work is definitely a beacon of hope for so many people who are navigating the complexities of trauma recovery. So, um, for the listeners, I'd love to mention, like, I hope today's episode has inspired all of you to reflect on your own journey and the incredible power of resilience and the healing. And always remember that no matter where you are in life, it's never too late to rewrite your story and rediscover your joy. So, if Michael's insight has resonated with you, I encourage all of you to explore his methods further, or reach out to someone who can help you on your path. So, healing isn't a kind of solo journey, but it's one we can take together. So, until next time, this is the host reminding you that no matter the obstacle is, it's always mind over matter. So, stay curious, stay courageous, and keep moving forward. So, thank you so much.